Thanks so much for joining us today. This is 3 Steps to Maximize Q4 Listings. And again, so happy to have MyOutDesk join us today. And Daniel Ramsey is the owner, a founder of MyOutDesk.com. And you're really the co-owner of the real estate virtual assistant provider. So you've been a real estate broker, Daniel, a general contractor and developer for the past 13 years. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's been a crazy, crazy ride. Up, down, poor, rich, rich, poor. So, yeah, I'm sure that many of people on this call can identify with that crazy ride.
Yeah, and a little bit about MyOutDesk. That was established in 2008. You and your brother discovered the amount of leverage a virtual assistant could give other realtors in the industry, and it's experienced tremendous growth year over year due to the growing demand and adoption of virtual assistant services in real estate.
Yeah,
So,
in fact, it was kind of a crazy gig. We started using it in our own practice, and a good friend of mine said, hey, could you get me 5 virtual assistants? And I said, 5? You really want 5? And he's like, yeah, I need 5. And so I was like, okay, but I have to charge you something. And MyOutDesk was born 6 years ago.
great. Well, I know a lot of folks every day they wake up and they check their Facebook page, they check the local, the national news to see what's going on, most importantly or recently the Ebola scare, the weather.
Yeah.
But when it comes to real estate, what do you think is among the top searches that homeowners and renters are looking for every day?
Right. So it's a great lead-in, and it's a great conversation. We're here today because Cole provides phone numbers, and we provide folks to call those phone numbers. And so it's really cool. Most people don't realize this, but the #1 consumed data point in the U.S. And across the world is simply home values. You know, what's my home worth? What's my neighborhood doing? What's going on? Who just sold? Who just bought? And so it's an easy place to start if you're thinking about kind of farming an area. It's just knowing what's going on in that area and providing information. It's actually something people want to know.
Right. And for our purposes, we do a lot of webinars here and have a lot of folks that are our customers and maybe prospects on the call today. But we're going to deviate a little bit from our usual, the way we usually do things, and we're going to do more of a Q&A, best practices, what we found. So for folks who have gone to or attended some of our webcasts in the past, it's going to be a little different, but the same rules apply in terms of housekeeping. You guys have your dashboard to the right of your screen. You're able to ask questions. You're able to chat with us. So really encourage you folks. We're going to talk about processes today. We're going to talk about how many calls people should make and what virtual assistants are and a little bit of those do's and don'ts. So if you do want some follow-up information, feel free to type those questions into that dashboard to the right of your screen, and we'll get to those kind of as we go through today's presentation. But first, as I always do, I want to talk a little bit about our company, make sure people are aware of what we do and who we are. And like Daniel mentioned, we do provide phone numbers, but what I want to talk about too is, we've been around for 67 years and started off as a crisscross directory of addresses and phone numbers. And we provide invaluable information for a number of industries. So real estate folks like you guys today, but we also have another product for insurance agents, another product for small business owners. But really the goal of it is to help you guys find new customers, and that's through information, through, like Daniel mentioned, phone numbers. And we have both landline and cell phone numbers now. And so, like we mentioned, we're going to talk a little bit about some success stories. And really, this comes back to 3 ways that agents can maximize their listing quotas. And Daniel, correct me if I'm wrong, but we've talked about this a couple times in the past. And it really is getting organized and knowing your numbers, starting targeting neighbors to build your pipeline for Q4. And outsourcing if you need that extra help. Once you get sort of up and running and you become overwhelmed, you really need to do some outsourcing. And here's one way to do that. And so let's go through this first agent success. We're going to talk about an agent success and also a team success. And let's start talking about this agent here. And really, we're talking about processes, and this is Ron Windsor, and he's a Century 21 agent, and we just talked to him earlier this week. And so he basically started over in a brand new area, and it's the Washington, D.C. area. And really his focus is contacting 75 to 100 homeowners every day. And so he has, as you can see, a tried and true process. And as we were kind of going through this, Daniel, you kind of said, this is great. However, he's going to become overwhelmed at some point.
Yeah, I mean, so what I love about what Ron's doing, and I hope he's on this call, is that there's a system in place. And, we talk about, we have real quick about a little bit about what we do. So we're a virtual assistant company. We have 800 folks over in the Philippines that support real estate people. So all we do is support real estate. I'm a real estate broker. I know that industry. I'm really comfortable making cold calls myself. I've just been in it so long that that's kind of what we do. And one of the focuses that we've had in the recent couple of years is how to turn virtual assistants into prospectors for agents. And most people fall down in the systems or process. And what I love about what Ron's doing here is he's got, from 8 to 11, he's prospecting. He's trying to make 400 to 500 calls. He's, hoping for 75 to 100 contacts every single day. And what I find the thing that separates people who are successful with a prospecting kind of system is that they just stick to a process every single day, and they get better and better and refine over time. And so I think this guy's doing a great job. I think if you're considering doing some sort of prospecting and you're a single agent, this is the kind of system that most people follow. Mike Ferry, all the major coaches out there would say this is the program that you should be on.
Right. Yeah, and so as you can see, he spends 3 good hours every day calling people. And so folks who are asking, well, how many calls do I need to make every day? You can see right there, it's between 400 and 500 calls. Of those, he's going to get 75 to 100 contacts. What he considers a contact is actually talking to someone about the future of their property. Right. So it's not just a hello, how are you? I'm doing fine. It is an actual conversation. And so as you can see, he's since June logged into Cole Realty Resource, and he has downloaded 308,000 records. 50 actual logins, and he's on track to do 50 listings this year. So, the afternoon he's doing live calls. He's doing those thank you notes. He carries around actual folders that have, for hot prospects, it's a red folder. For, maybe not so hot prospects, it's more like a golden folder. And then he does his appointments in the afternoon. And here kind of is how he is getting into these cold calls or this information that he gets from Cole. He says, hey, I'm Ron Windsor with Century 21. I've seen several properties sell at the listing price in your area in the last few weeks. I'm curious, with the recent activity in the market, what are your future plans for your property? And you were saying it's not really, so many people want to know the script, but it's not so much the script as it is just making the calls. Right, Daniel?
Yeah, and you know what? I can't stress this enough. We kind of alluded to it in the beginning of the conversation. It's like, what's the number one thing people are interested in? And Ron's doing a fabulous job kind of sparking interest, like with all the recent market activity. What's your future plans for your home? That can open up a conversation about, what is happening in their neighborhood, how many sales have happened, what the price increases have been, and what's really going on. This morning, getting ready for this webinar, I actually Googled. I'm from Sacramento, California. That's our headquarters, and it's where I've practiced real estate, in my career. And so, real quick, I just jumped on Google and I said Sacramento home, average home values, and the top 3 things were obvious, Zillow, Trulia. But after that, the next thing was the Sacramento Business Journal, and it was an article from 2013. So, like, even in my little area of the world, like, there isn't a really great recent article that's trending in Google about what Sacramento average home prices are doing. So I think it's a space that you could own really relatively easy. And if you have some articles and you have some information like that, people actually want to consume that data. So and making the calls is just the first step, and then having really good conversations where you're providing value. That's the other key is, when I'm calling, I want to provide value to the folks over on the other side of the phone, and that's the difference between connecting with people and actually sparking conversations and having them drop that guard. When you call 500-600 people, the biggest thing is just getting them to have a conversation with you. And so smiling, getting good information, connecting with them, and engaging in a great conversation about home values, I think that's key, and Ron's obviously doing a great job at that.
Right. And here's kind of our other success story we wanted to go after today and talk about. And this is the Heil Group, and they're out of Austin, Texas. As you can see, they've got some fabulous stats. $80 million in 2013 in home sales. And they use Cole information for their telephone information, so 368,000 downloads, 210 logins. They prospect 6 days a week, and they, in this case, do have virtual assistants, and they have kind of a combination, right, Daniel, of actual inside sales folks, virtual assistants. They make 10,000 plus calls. They also do some direct mail as neighborhood prospecting. So let's talk a little bit about the benefits of the virtual assistant and the qualities kind of that you look for in virtual assistants, because, like you mentioned, they're overseas.
Right. So let's real quick, I want to just touch on what Sam does that is different, because everybody on this call is like, well, how do the most successful agents, we kind of profiled Ron, who's a single agent who just moved to a new territory. So if you're a single agent and you're kind of you decided to add this piece to your business, following what he's doing is just beautiful. Now, if you're a little bit longer in your career, if you've got maybe some leverage in your team, modeling what the Tim Heil Group and Sam is doing is like, that's the thing to do. We call it R&D, rip off and redistribute. There's no reason to reinvent the wheel. These guys are doing a fabulous job. $80 million in sales is, they're at the top 1% of real estate brokers around the U.S. And so what they're doing that's really I love is they have a system that is designed to hit a high number of contacts. So they have 10 inside sales agents and 4 or 5 virtual assistants from our company. And the virtual assistant's role in that whole process is highlighting leads. So, they call, they have the same conversation. What are your future plans for your house? Or, are you planning to sell? Or do you know anybody, or who do you know that's planning to sell? And we actually have their script in the next slide, but they're simply making tons and tons of contacts. And the virtual assistant is trying to find somebody who raises their hand and says, yeah, I'm actually thinking about selling in the next 3 to 4 months. And at that point, what happens is the virtual assistant hands over that lead to a licensed inside sales agent, somebody who has a lot more experience, and their role is to actually close the appointment. So our virtual assistants in their system is their appointment setters and like lead identifier. So this is a hot lead. I've identified them, and then they warm transfer over to a salesperson.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I do have a couple questions, Daniel, from the audience, actually,
Awesome.
and I hope that you're okay with that. But in this case, the question is, are VAs trained on doing prospect lookups via Cole, or do you, how does that transfer made? Who actually downloads the information and gives it to the folks to make those calls? How does that work?
So in Sam's company, and we can speak to the different options because Sam's not the only option. There's a lot of, we all do real estate, and so we all practice it very much different. And so I really appreciate this question. So the systems that you need some sort of a dialer, because Cole is going to give you the information, the phone numbers and the names and all the great data and info about the prospect, right? But that has to get loaded into some sort of a system for making the phone calls. And so one that a lot of people use is Mojo Dialer. There's Ring Central. There's a lot of options in terms of dialers. Our company, we use Inside Sales, which is a tie-on to Salesforce. But when you grab the data that data comes over, and then you put them into a dialer, and then that dialer dials. Now, when a lead raises their hand, that then and says, I'm a seller, it then gets transferred into a CRM, some sort of a long-term, client relationship management software. So that's the process. And a virtual assistant can be trained to pull the data from Cole. There's a ton of webinars on you guys have a ton of webinars about how to use the system and process. So training a virtual assistant, the real question there, let me answer the real question. Are these VAs good enough to do something as simple as downloading, phone numbers on Cole? That's the real question. Are they smart enough? Are they capable? Are they motivated? Am I going to get a good quality product? That's the real question. And I can tell you, we wouldn't be around if it wasn't. We have 821, I think, as of last week, virtual assistants, and about 300 of them are doing sales support. So they're doing this kind of work for their clients each and every single day. In Sam's case, he's the leader of their sales team, so he monitors all the numbers, makes sure that there's enough numbers loaded into the dialer every single day. He's the one that kind of makes sure the machine is running in their group, but there's no reason why a virtual assistant couldn't just do that for you.
Now, another question that we have is, are these internet calls that are being made, how are they actually making the calls, or is that through the dialer? How does that work?
So Mojo or RingCentral or Skype, these are all VoIP phone calls, so voice over internet protocol. So yeah, and it's really important. There's two concerns with that world, and I want to make sure that we nail both of those. One concern is the quality of the system. If you're calling in the Philippines, the internet speed that you have in that country is super important. And so you want to, and that's something that we just handle for you. Like our virtual assistants, they have to have a 2 Mbps before they ever even get an interview with our clients. So we just take care of that for you and make sure that the internet speed is great on their side. The second concern is that you buy not the free or not the low-cost one. Many people, you'll sign up for instance, RingCentral. They have a product that's $10 or $15 a month. The one that you actually need is I think it's $40 a month, $39 or $35 a month or something like this. And the reason is because they have back-end reporting. So this goes back to the systems, right? And so your virtual assistant, if they truly dial 1,000 people, they should get 400 or 500 people that actually answer the phone. If they talk to 400 or 500 people, we hope that they have between 50 and 100 conversations. And in our world, a conversation is 30 seconds or longer on the phone. So we kind of do a little different than Ron and maybe even a little different than Sam. We're looking for 30 seconds of conversation, and we just kind of assume that if you as a homeowner are talking to somebody for 30 seconds, there's a good conversation going on. And then from that, teams like Sam's, he's highlighting 25 prospects every single day per virtual assistant. So, and what you want on the back end of something like RingCentral or Mojo Dials or any of the inside sales, any of the dialer platforms is just some sort of reporting capacity so that you can actually verify that they're doing the dials that they say they're doing. So we do something called an end-of-day report for all of our virtual assistants and a start-of-day report. So start-of-day report, I've got 1,000, 2,000 people loaded in a dialer. I'm rocking and rolling. I'm calling into this neighborhood. Here's the stats that I'm using. Here's my script. I'm ready to go. I'm reporting for work. It's 8 a.m. Our virtual assistants, by the way, work on your time frame. So whichever state you're in. If you're in New York, that's fine. They'll follow your time frame. If they're in California, that's fine. We'll follow your time frame. In fact, I've got some data that's really good about that. So we did a bunch of calls for Zillow last year, and when I say a bunch, like over 100,000 per month, prospecting for buyer leads on the Zillow platform. And what we found is the best times for calling for this kind of a program is between 10 o'clock and 7 p.m. Monday through Friday. Those were the best times we were getting live contacts and making conversations or making conversions from just a contact to an actual prospect. So that's just good information for anybody that's listening.
Yeah. Another question: what do you guys do with there's obviously an accent. So how do you kind of help them with their accent and decide who you're going to hire as a virtual assistant, I guess?
So there's two things. I mean, we have two tracks of virtual assistants. One is what we call the ISA person, so somebody who's prospecting and making phone calls, sales support. That's one track. Obviously, like, their accent is super important, and their presence on the phone and their tonality and all that kind of sales stuff, you know. Are they smiling? You know, wildly enough, just smiling on the phone, people can hear that. And so that's a super important skill. What we do on that side is we actually look for people who have already had experience on the phone. So JP Morgan Chase is over there, Wells Fargo is over there. I mean, all of the DirecTV is over there. I mean, every single large U.S. corporation outsources their voice to the Philippines. So, I mean, and many of you experience, you know, customer service. When you go to tech support, it goes to India. When you're calling customer service, it goes to the Philippines. In 2010, the Philippines outstripped the rest of the world in terms of voice, you know, customer service and phone support. So it's the #1 country in the world where, you know, large corporations outsource their voice calling. That's why we're there. I mean, it's just, we're there because their accent is the most neutral accent in the world. And they have the largest population of English speaking. One thing about the Philippines, it's like 7,000 different little islands, and everybody has a different dialect, and their one common language is actually English. And so when you're driving on the road, you see a stop sign, and it's the same stop sign that you see in the U.S. Their laws are written in English. So English isn't an issue. But like I was saying, we have two tracks. So we have the track that's, you know, phone-centric, and then we have administrative and marketing track. And those folks are different. But we screen, and we try to, you know, stop the bad ones from coming in and say, no, sorry, your accent's too thick, or we don't understand, or you don't have experience. But the other thing is, you guys, the clients, get to choose who you hire. So you're going to do a phone interview just like we are right now. Like, I can see Laura's face, and she's hanging out right there. Hi. So you'll actually get to interview your virtual assistant just like this, and you get to select the person that you'd like to hire on your team. So we screen them, train them, put them in front of you. You say, yeah, this is good, this person's good enough. I think I can make this work. Does that make sense?
That makes sense, yeah. So some of the questions too include, you know, how many calls can they make in a day?
Yeah, so 400 to 500, just like Ron, is a normal thing. We have clients. We have actually, wildly enough, we have a couple clients that are having their virtual assistant do 1,000 calls a day, and that's their marker. Like, I want to have them on the dialer and making 1,000 calls a day, pulling data, and, you know, trying to contact as many people as possible. So, I mean, it just all depends on your system. If you have a great system and a great process and coaching, and you're kind of walking your virtual assistant through that, and you kind of refine. See, the thing is, this doesn't happen overnight. This isn't, you know, I hire somebody, they know what they're doing, it works perfectly, no problems. This is probably the thing that will take your production, you know, from 50 units to 100 units. Like, this is the thing that Ron will eventually have to implement within his business in order to kind of make that jump to the next level. And so it's not going to, I mean, those kind of increases in volume and increases in revenue, you know, they're realistically, they're a challenge, and so you've got to work at it. And you'll kind of refine it over time, and you know, it's the way to grow.
And these two examples that we're speaking of, these folks are organized.
Yeah,
I think that's what it comes down to.
You know, you know, we're all in business, right? We all own a real estate practice. The thing about real estate that's really unique is, you know, typically we don't have an office. Typically we're not manufacturing anything. Typically we don't have huge teams. Like, you're not going to sell, 2,000 agents who work for you, you're not going to sell that off. Typically, the majority of agents are between 5 and 10 agents in their office. Smaller teams, very effective teams, very good salespeople. But where we lack is this system. And the thing about if you build up a practice that is sellable, real estate agents sell their practices all day long. The one differentiating thing between people who do sell their practice versus don't is their database, and building a database of repeat referrals and having a client contact management system. And so it is super, super, super important. And so if you don't have that, like that would probably be step 1, and step 2 would get a dialer. Step 3 would call Cole and figure out a process. And then once you've got that process put together, then give us a call, and we'd be happy to help by providing a virtual assistant to help kind of leverage your team.
Right. Some questions too about like do not call rules, bad numbers, legal issues, and what I do want to say about that is when it comes to phone and the do not call, calling phone numbers and the do not call, what Cole does is we recommend that agents get a subscription account number, and there's a ton of information. We provide a ton of webinar support and customer care support on how you can get a SAN. It's free for up to 5 area codes, not to be confused with zip codes. We're talking about phones, right? Area codes. And then we do have that cell phone option, and again, you have to have a SAN number to get the cell phone information, because again, there's a lot of rules and regulations when it comes to cell phone numbers, and a lot of folks have put their number, both landline and cell phone number, on the DNC, the Do Not Call Registry, and those numbers are permanent. So when it comes to Cole Realty Resource and the information that folks get, you're responsible because you're an individual user or as a team or whatever, but you have to have a subscription account number, and then you're able to get those phone numbers that are scrubbed against the National Do Not Call Registry, which then if you hired a virtual assistant or really anyone that you work with, anyone that works for your company, then they're responsible to be calling those numbers that are on that are not on the Do Not Call list and that are okay to call. And really that's why we have a subscription account or based business, because we want you to download updated information, because someone may be on the Do Not Call registry today, but yet yesterday they weren't, because you can easily switch or update that information anytime you want to. So we update our information on a regular basis every 30 days, and that's why we have a subscription-based business.
Right. Well, and I think there's another piece of that too, is if you're listening and you're thinking about hiring a virtual assistant, we're certainly not licensed. So many states have rules and laws against unlicensed people making prospecting calls, and you need to really balance like what your state agrees and allows, and just make sure that you're kind of staying within the letter of the law. One of our virtual assistants, we actually had to kind of coach away from pretending to be an agent. Like he would call people and be like, "Oh, great, you want to sell? Well, let's talk about your house and tell me how many bedrooms and bathrooms and blah blah blah, and let's talk about what's happening in the neighborhood." And he was a great virtual assistant, but he wanted to kind of hand off a really great lead, and so he had this motivation to be an amazing virtual assistant and get all the information, blah blah blah. And what we had to coach him on is, hey, when you identify a lead that says, hey, I'm ready to sell, I've actually been considering it, and I actually have some questions, that's when you need to have a licensed person step into the conversation. That's why Sam's company has the ISA that's in-house and a virtual assistant calling all these numbers. You just need to know at what point the call needs to be transferred over to an actual licensed person, and it's your responsibility to take care of it, just like the Do Not Call list. For us, we're in California, so we know those rules, but I don't know the rules in Nevada or New York or Florida, and so we rely on our clients to kind of handle that legal piece.
Okay. Now, we do have some questions about training. Who's responsible to train the VAs? Will they do the research? Will they set it up? Will they provide best practices? How does that all work?
Yeah, so and at the end of this, we're going to have we have a landing page that you can go to request more information. And it truly is, one of our interests is when we started, like imagine this, it's 2008, nobody had ever heard of a virtual assistant. So one of our vision, statements is to change the real estate industry and provide great jobs and great employees for realtors in the U.S. and Canada. And when we first started, no one had heard, they just didn't know, like, what's a virtual assistant? Like that world was not part of the DNA in the real estate industry. So what we've done is we create a 1 to 2 hour consultation, and we talk about best practices. We get a job description together. We make sure that you have the right systems and processes in place. We talk about what the costs are. We have a full-time option, which is 40 hours a week, and a part-time option, which is 20 hours a week. Some people might want to start at the 20, get their systems in place, get the best practices, make sure it works, and then add more people as you get better and better at it. But we handle all of that kind of onboarding stuff for you. So if you're thinking about, if you're considering it, it's a free consultation. It doesn't cost you anything. You're going to talk to a licensed agent in Sacramento in our headquarters, and you're actually going to get, we'll give you some scripts, we'll give you best practices, we'll make sure you have the right system, and it's all free. So, I mean, we do that just because our vision is to change the industry and to make this part of everyone's process. But the training that we provide is a 2-week boot camp. And what I would explain about that is we get them, we put them into a boot camp, we actually have them making live calls. So they're making calls out to leads just like they're going to do for you, and we score them based on how well they do. Like, they actually have to convert leads within our 2-week training before they get placed with a client. And they get exposure to, like, Real Estate 101 and what's a CRM and how do you generate leads and what's a normal team setup and all that kind of junk. But it's only 2 weeks, and it's a boot camp. So we actually only hire 2% of the people that apply. So, like, last month we had something over 5,000 applicants, and we only hired 2% into clients' offices. And the reason for that is that we just have a tremendous kind of value proposition for virtual assistants working for us over in the Philippines. They love our company, and so we get a ton of applicants, and then we have to screen them. Then we have to spend 2 weeks training them. 50% of the people that go into our training don't actually graduate, so we're getting rid of the folks that can't, engage with clients. They don't show up on time. They don't understand the material. So we're testing them. We're role-playing with them. But again, it's 2 weeks. And every single realtor across the country does it differently. So, my office is going to be different than Sam's office. That's different than Ron's office. That's different than Laura's office. So they're going to need some time to get ready and be effective in your particular office. Does that make sense, Laura?
Yeah, right. And then there's other questions, that I'm getting to, like, what about equipment? What about legally treated as an employee or a team? Taxes and benefits, how do you pay them? All those great questions that come along with that information.
Yeah, we didn't expect so many good questions, right?
We have great questions. We have really, I'm so excited that we've got a stellar group of folks today.
Yeah.
So as you can see, I am listening to you, Daniel. At the same time, I'm also answering questions. So if you can see, I'm really concentrating. It's because I'm
I can see. You're going like this right into the computer screen. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about that. First of all, we're a U.S. corporation, and then we're a corporation in the Philippines. So we are a true staffing company. We're a staffing company with a real estate emphasis, and all we do is real estate. Like, I swear, I think the only guy that I know that is a client is a boat broker, which is funny. He's in Florida. He sells boats, and he's got one of our virtual assistants helping him process paperwork and do online leads and all that kind of jazz. But that's the only client I think that isn't in real estate, right, out of 821 or some crazy number. But we're a staffing company, so we maintain the rules and all the legality stuff over in the Philippines. And then we are a U.S.-based company, and so we're a corporation here. And so the contract will be with the licensed broker and MyOutDesk. So MyOutDesk and you will enter into an agreement, and you'll actually pay us, and then we pay our sister company in the Philippines, and they handle all the employee stuff. What were the other questions? I forget.
Some other questions are equipment.
Yes. So headsets, phones, internet connections, a backup internet connection, and a generator. These are all like standard operating things over in the Philippines. And I say a backup generator because electricity is just not stable in third world countries. It just isn't. And so many of our virtual assistants, they have to have a secondary place for them to go if they do have a blackout or a power outage or something going on. So they provide their own laptops. We make sure that they're new enough and actually work. They provide internet speed of 2 Mbps, and they have a secondary different company Mbps. For us, internet and computer and phones is almost like showing up for work. That's our gig. If they don't have internet connection, they didn't show up for work that day. And so we really screen that out. Folks that don't have great internet connections, we say we want to hire you, but you need to upgrade your internet. They go and upgrade their internet, then we hire them, then we give them to a client like you and let you screen them and see if you want to hire them.
Right. All right. So, okay. Somebody wants to do a role play using a script that we use as a virtual assistant, a sample script. And we don't really have a role play opportunity, but there is information. I have seen role playing stuff that you have provided on your website. So for the person who's asking that, you have done a lot of YouTube videos, and you simply either go to MyOutDesk.com or you can go to YouTube.com and type in the search MyOutDesk, and you will find a ton of YouTube videos where there are role-playing scenarios. And actually, you talk to someone who is in the Philippines that you go through that scenario. So
what's crazy too is Sam did a role play with his best virtual assistant, and what I'd want to tell to the people that the real question was, okay, I'm interested, but are they just kind of bullshitting me? Like, is this just sales? Is he a great salesperson? Can they actually make calls? We have 300 virtual assistants that are making calls. The best, there's this one gal in Florida who has a virtual assistant. In one day, her virtual assistant set 11 appointments for their team. And so if you think about the power of leverage and somebody who's setting 11 appointments, that's a big deal. That's a game changer for most real estate agents. And
I think, too, Daniel, not to interrupt, but at the end of the day, you want to gather additional information from those homeowners. So you're not just having your virtual assistant give them a call, see if they're interested. You're saying, great, what's your email address? Do you have a cell phone number? Can I follow up with you on this alternative method of communication? Maybe even what's your Twitter handle? What's your Facebook profile? Can I friend you? Asking those additional information so you can, because I can tell you personally, we have people reach out to us all the time on Facebook. They will reach out to me. Then they'll follow up with me on LinkedIn. Then they will send me an email. So there are so many different ways that people can communicate. It's figuring out what the best way that particular prospect wants to communicate. And it's not just via phone. It's not just via email anymore. It is even, with Yelp kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, and I think the takeaway from that is that customers, we're at conferences, and the last couple of days I've heard some great stuff, and one of the lines was the new currency is speed and engagement. And so how fast are you at delivering the thing that your client wants, and how engaged are you within the process? And I think that's a big deal, and the new mantra is clients want what they want when they want it, and then when they're done, that's it. Like, they don't want to be bugged anymore. And so I think that's the new rule. And having a virtual assistant just kind of, hey, you're a lead, great, let me get your email, put them into your CRM. Let me get your Facebook. I'm going to add you to my community page where I put really good information about what's going on in the area and what's going on in terms of home values. I'm also going to be sending you out the top 10 mistakes that people make when they're selling their house. That's actually physical. I'm going to send that to you. So, you know, they can create that process of follow-up for you so that all you're doing is when, you know, Susie Q says, I'm ready to sell, then you enter the conversation. And
right, because
that's when,
at the end of the day, according to the National Realtors Association, 66% of sellers actually go with that first realtor that they have come into contact with. So it is about, you know, we haven't talked a lot today about direct mail, but it is about establishing a presence in a neighborhood you're trying to farm, right? It's
right.
getting your picture out there. It's saying, hey, I own this neighborhood. Here's my USP, my unique selling proposition, my unique point of view. I can do what no one else can do. You know, I can sell your home in XYZ number of days or at this particular level. And then it's following up with them with something of value, like you mentioned. So if they get on your e-newsletter, that you're providing them top 10 tips of how to stage your home, 5
Right.
reasons why curb appeal will win new customer, or, you know, will get folks to come to your open house, ways to make your open house more effective. You know, so you're creating that, and then you're getting them in your CRM. You're seeing what things that they are consuming on your website, right? And then you're following up with them again on, hey, I saw that you read 5 ways to stage your home. You know, are you having an open house? Are you thinking about selling your house? What can I help you with?
Sure,
You know,
sure.
So these people, again, it's a numbers game, but it's all about lead nurturing once you get them into kind of your funnel and then talking to them appropriately. So in other words, you would never talk to someone, you know, who's interested in a purple coat about a green dress, right?
Right.
This comes down to basic selling 101.
Well, it's developing a pipeline. See, the big thing about, like Sam, that's the other thing is realtors, there are many times that we're just focused on the here and now. Like, do you want to sell your house? No? Okay, great. Bye. Gone, gone, gone. But what Sam's doing is he's creating a pipeline, a big amount of people who say that in the next 6 months they're going to sell. And he's segmenting those people. Like, these people are in the next 90 days, these people are in 6 months, these are 6 months and beyond, but they do have an interest in selling. And so then he creates these different follow-up campaigns based on where they're at in the buying or selling process, right? And
Right.
so that's a big deal. And if you're new at that piece, call us. We want to help. And I think Cole's a great place to get the information. And we have a ton of great webinars on like unique messaging and marketing out to your client base. So I think that's a big deal.
Yeah. So I have a couple other questions
Cool.
while we're going through this, which we've gotten some, again, great questions. And one is compensation for a great virtual assistant. How do you compensate them so you don't lose them? So that's one question. Another one is, are you sharing these virtual assistants with other companies?
Mm-hmm.
So that's 2.
Let's just stick with 1 or 2. Let's
Okay.
do one at a time because
Those
I forget. Okay. So compensation. So if you're calling, if you want to implement this piece, it's $9.60 an hour. That's what you're going to pay for a virtual assistant, and we handle all of the health care. We give them health care for them and their family. We give them vacation time. We do 2 conferences a year. They're paid 3 times the average wage. There's a lot of we have a great value proposition for them over in the Philippines. So retention, you don't have to worry about in terms of compensation and all of that. We're going to handle that. We've gotten really good at kind of attracting the best talent and then keeping them. And I think the place that you can make the biggest impact in terms of retention once you hire a virtual assistant is just simply being there for them, coaching them. Like, if you have a coach, you know what it's like to get, feel that attention and have somebody help you to the next level of your career. Same process with any employee. They where you want to be in 5 years, what's important to you, why did you take this job, what skills do you need help with? What kind of development can we do? What training should we do for you? So it's just about engaging with them and really understanding what their needs are and just being a good coach and a great boss. That's probably the biggest thing that you can do to retain. If you do 20 hours a week and you decide that you want to start at 20, we're going to pair you up with a virtual assistant who has a morning or an afternoon block available, and they work 40 hours. So you may share with another company or another particular client. We obviously try to make sure that they're in different areas because we don't want two direct competitors. That'd be kind of weird. But we do have an NDA with our virtual assistants, and the other piece is they're never going to steal your business. This is the funny, and Laura, we didn't really talk about this when we were prepping for this, but
right.
If you're a real estate agent and you hire a physical person and they don't know anything about real estate and you pour your heart and soul into them and you teach them how to do it, you teach them how to prospect, then they get licensed, then they start looking at you and saying, well, why don't I start making those commission checks? Like I can't tell you how many brokers I've talked to who've trained their competition. That broker then moves to another company or starts their own company, and then boom, you've just spun your wheels basically. With a virtual assistant, this is the best opportunity they have. They're never going to take your business. If you're a great boss and you have great engagement and you give them great support and great coaching, you could potentially have the same virtual assistant. I mean, we're 6 years in. I still have most of the virtual assistants that worked for my team when I originally started doing this. And so you can too 5, 6 years down the road. And that retention piece is such a big deal because once they're trained and once they're running the system, you'll never, okay, so I'm talking mission and vision and all that kind of stuff. Our mission is to provide real estate people, just like you guys on this webinar, with indispensable virtual assistants so that once you have one, you wonder, how did I run my business without that? And that's our mission. And so that's what we hold to. If we ask you what the quality is, you need to say my virtual assistant is now indispensable. If that happens, then we've hit our mission. So that I hope that answered the question.
Mm-hmm.
Laura's
yeah.
deep in thought.
Okay. So we answered those two questions, right? The compensation question, whether you're sharing. Can you hire them for odd hours? And I think we've answered that question. They work any day, any time, correct? Including weekends?
Yeah. So, we've had weird requests from clients. When you have 800 clients, some can I have them work every single night, 7 days a week? No. Can they just work weekends for me? No. So, what we're looking for is a normal schedule, like Sunday to Thursday or Tuesday to Saturday. They can work evenings if you want some coverage in the evenings. If you're worried about hey, the best time to call is between 3 and 7 in my market or 2 and 7 in my market, and so that's when I want them, then that's fine. We'll get you a 2 to 7, and then the other person, we'll try to get them around 10 to 2. But we can't make it a wide break where they're working nights for you and early mornings for somebody else, and there's a middle break of 6 hours because all of these folks have families. All of these folks want to have a good work-life balance, and so it's kind of up to us to kind of help make that happen.
Okay. And 2, what about if they are sick? What about, can they call in sick? Something happens, there's an earthquake. Is there a backup available? What happens with that?
So, it's a good question. We are a staffing company, and so what we do is we facilitate you finding what we would hope is our indispensable virtual assistants or employees for your company. But they are just that. I mean, I had and Laura knows her, our head of marketing, yesterday. She was just sick. She went to a conference last week and met too many people and obviously got a bug. She was just sick, and it happens. And to be you just have to understand, we all have family emergencies. Well, there will be a natural disaster at some point. Stuff's going to happen, and so you just have to kind of allow for that and understand that their interest is really being indispensable for your team, and they're going to do their best to show up every day.
That's a good thing. Well, let's talk a little bit about, I mean, we've talked a lot about who virtual assistants are, where they're located, how you compensate and pay them, that kind of thing. Let's talk a little bit about, kind of an offering that we have as a result of attending this webinar.
Sure.
And again, Daniel, tell us a little bit about, kind of going over those points that your company, MyOutDesk, offers all of this information, prospecting. This is what they are, prospecting virtual assistants, but they're
Yes.
real people. They're not fake, right? They're just in the Philippines.
Right.
They provide administrative. They provide marketing help. You guys can help with screening, training, support. And you guys do have a special offer today for folks who are attending this webinar and who are, in effect, really interested in what the offer is and want to learn more about MyOutDesk.
Yeah. So again, I want to go back. If you just jump on this website, MyOutDesk/Cole Realty, it's super easy, and you just need to register. We're going to give you hours of our time. So for free, we're going to talk to you. We're going to discover whether or not we would be a good fit, if we could help. I mean, a lot of times we get into coaching relationships and we say, hey, you're not ready for a virtual assistant yet. We need to build out this and this and this system first, and then you can come back and hire a virtual assistant. For us, like, retention is a big deal. Like, hiring the right client and hiring the right virtual assistant is kind of like our main focus. And so we're not going to our sales process is really a consultation coach process. So jump on there. It's completely free. We do charge $495 for our setup fee, and then we have a $9.60 an hour cost for a virtual assistant, and then we have a 3-month lock-in period. So we're not looking for clients who are just want to try it. We're interested in finding people who want to implement this and double their production. That's what we're after. And one thing that I would say, as long as you guys are reasonable, and we'll be reasonable too, if we get a virtual assistant and something isn't working, like they're not converting, we've coached them, 2 weeks have gone by and it's been a challenge, or the system isn't working, we'll come in. We're not money motivated. We want to come in. We have 3 coaches for every virtual assistant that are put on our team. So there's an operations manager, there's a client coach, and there's a virtual assistant coach. So we have all the support you would need to actually get this launched and ready. But it is a 3-month commitment, and you're gonna spend money before you see a return. That's what business is. But we're certain that the money is going to be well spent. And as long as you stick with us in the process, we're going to make sure that you get ramped up correctly and the right way. And so the offer is $100 off that setup fee. And I do want to say our setup fee is actual cost. That's the cost for us to bring a new virtual assistant on. So we're taking a loss to add clients from Cole Realty right now because, honestly, we want to impact it. We want to impact the industry.
And that's, obviously the goal of today's webinar is we want to impact real estate agents and help them to figure out these processes. And, it's unfortunate or fortunate, but as a small business owner, you guys have the power to adjust your marketing. And that's what I always tell small business owners. It's the coolest thing, and sometimes it's the biggest headache, right? You have the ability to, at a moment's notice, change what you're going to do. You guys can start doing direct mail tomorrow. You can start a telemarketing campaign this afternoon, right? And so a lot of folks struggle so much with the process, and unfortunately, you're going to have to just try and see what works and then figure it out from there and tweak it. Because what works for one agent isn't going to work for another agent, and what works for someone else isn't going to work for someone else. But if you just try it, download some numbers, if you're finding that you're making your 400 to 500 calls or you're completely overwhelmed with listing appointments, then maybe it's time to outsource, right? And so it's getting that process in place. Here's how we're going to download the numbers. Here's who's responsible for that piece of the puzzle. Here's the script we're going to do. Here's how we're going to do the handoff. Here's, and then you kind of can mold it into handing that process off to a virtual assistant company who can then take it and say, yeah, you guys have the process in place. Now let's put it into action. We're going to find you some virtual assistants. Maybe it's just one to start off with, and make sure that's working. Tweak it when it's needed to be tweaked, and go from there.
I want to expand on one of your points. Like, I've been in a position where in 2007, I had a 90% drop in revenue. And, this is 7 years ago, and unfortunately I wasn't using virtual assistants at that time. But, having a prospecting, like, phone call center kind of thing, it can recession-proof your business. No matter what's going on in the market, you're going to continue to have deals that come up because you're all the time on the phone. Obviously, in really bad times, it's going to be really hard, and you may have to cut back. But we're not in that situation right now. In fact, Laura, I want to say the biggest thing that you can do to double your production is leverage and kind of adding people, because in most markets right now across the U.S., we're going like this. We're on the uptick, and it's starting to feel again like 2001, 2, and 3, where it was super busy. And so right now is the time to work on systems, work on process, hire some folks, get your ducks in a row, because over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, you can benefit from all the hard upfront work that you're going to have to do now to create that system. And you can either do a lot of transactions yourself, or you can have 5 people on your team helping you to do 5 times the amount of transactions. And that's kind of what our kind of model is.
Right. Hey, Daniel, can you say the pricing one more time? And then I'm going to give the pricing of Cole information and Cole Realty Resource for folks as well. And then, unfortunately, we've come to an hour, so we're going to have to let you guys go and get back to prospecting and calling folks.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so $495, but we're doing $100 off the setup fee. It's $395. We do $9.60 an hour. So it roughly is about $1,400–1,500 a month. And with that, if you add Cole onto it, I think you'd have a really great prospecting system.
Perfect. And for folks who are interested in Cole Realty Resource, if you're not already a customer, again, we've got unlimited phone numbers. It's a subscription-based model. We want you to download information new every day if that's your if that's what you want to do. But we regularly update that information, and we do give you that purchase date, purchase amount, additional information like square footage, birth dates when available. And then also, we do have this app for on-the-go agents. It's called Cole Home IQ. We do have seamless integration with a lot of companies, a lot of CRMs, as well as dialers, and possibly in the future with MyOutDesk as well. So we're always happy to partner with various companies and organizations and provide that seamless integration. But you can also just download the information onto your computer and then upload it to wherever it needs to go, right? And so for folks who just want unlimited landline phone numbers, unlimited information that way for direct mail and telemarketing, it's $395 for the entire year. If you do want that additional cell phone information, it's $11.95, and that's a 30% discount just for joining us. So if you're interested in that, feel free to give us a call at 800-800-3271. We can set you up with that. And then if you want to also check out MyOutDesk.com, obviously we want you to do that as well. So the name of the game today is to be more effective with your marketing. And I've been talking again to a lot of folks who are doing a lot of great stuff, and we want to celebrate that and move the needle. If you're doing a great telemarketing campaign and maybe you're struggling with making those numbers, maybe it's time to start moving on to a direct mail campaign. Maybe it's starting to move on with a little bit more of a social media campaign. If you want to ramp up those efforts with your calling campaign, then maybe it's finding someone who can help you call and get those processes in place at the same time that you're ramping up direct mail, ramping up social media. So it's all about moving the needle, and at the end of the day, right, Daniel, it's a numbers game.
Yeah, more contacts, more sales. That's it.
Right. Right. So thank you so much for joining us. We are recording today's session. We will have this online. I'll get this out to you tomorrow. So give me a little bit of time because I've got to do some editing on the back end. And we will be in touch for those folks who I've been talking to. We'll give you get back in touch with you with that information. And also, we'll be giving you some scripting ideas as well to get started. But again, it's not so much the script as it is kind of just reaching out to folks and really starting to move the needle with that telemarketing campaign.
Yeah, agreed.
So
Thanks,
Daniel,
Laura, for having me.
so much for joining us today,
Yeah.
and you guys have a great day, and let's get to prospecting.
Yep. Thanks for your time.